is Sam Maggio. Sam has been running his own company since he was 33 years old and dropped out from college. Not because he wasn't doing so well, rather the opposite. It says here in my bio that he was a 4.0 A student. He's an inventor, and his current company is called International Climbing Machines. They make small remote control devices that can climb walls, towers, buildings, and do work that no human should do. Please welcome Sam.
Hi everyone. After all those beautiful South African accents, you'll have to suffer through my New York State accent. I'm going to talk about making your own power, because obviously fracking is how they're making natural gas, which is how they're making electricity. So if we don't feed the frackers, if we use some alternative methods, we then are providing a solution. I can speak to this topic because I have been off the grid and making my own power for 6 years. There's a lot of people who get up and speak or write magazine articles about making their own power, and they don't have a clue. They've never done it. And they're using very old cliches which make making your own power sound like it's too difficult, it's too expensive, there's so much maintenance, and it's not for everybody. It can be for everybody. It can be for the 99% of the people who, when they hear that it's not for everybody, they assume they're speaking to them. Because there's only about 1% of the people who are making their own power. It's not that difficult. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal experience with it, but more importantly, why you can make your own power. 6 years ago, I bought about 21 acres just west of here. It was just land. It was my first opportunity to build my own house. I had already committed to making my own power, but the decision was reinforced by the fact that the road that I live on, there was no power from the utilities. There was about a half-mile stretch of my road which was powerless, which I thought was really great. No power lines, but just for amusement more than anything, I did call NYSEG and asked them how much would it cost to bring power into my new house. And after a few visits, they determined that it would cost me $28,000 for the benefit of being able to write them a check every month for the rest of my life so that they could charge me for the power that they were going to charge me $28,000 to bring to my home. So I call that a double no-brainer. So I started out investigating how to make my own power. I read those articles, which I'm sure all of you have, which I think they come from the same 1984-ish, little volume. Every article, I don't care if it's Mother Earth News, or if it's Time Magazine, or if it's Forbes, or your local newspaper. They all repeat the same, and again, I'll call these lies because they are. They say you can't get into making your own power unless you spend $30,000. False. I spent $6,000. The other thing they tell you is that, well, there's a lot of maintenance. There's not much maintenance. I mean, how often do you have to do something with the battery in your car? Sure. Every now and then you have to replace your battery or you have to check on it. But it's not this grueling, difficult, you have to have a lot of technical expertise type of thing. It's just not true. The other thing that is really popular around here is Ithaca. There's no sun in Ithaca. You can't possibly make your own power. Well, once again, after 6 years, I can attest that there is in fact enough sun in the Ithaca area. There's enough sun for any one of us who choose to go that direction of making our own power. Now, the philosophic reasons that initially drove me to make my own power is largely because, and I've got a little pie chart here. In the United States, electricity generation by source, I'm sure most of you know this because we have a lot of very astute people here. 45% of the power is made from coal. 24% is made from natural gas. In other words, again, we're feeding the frackers every time we write a check to anybody in the power grid. Roughly, let's say 20 cents, 24 cents is going to the gas companies. 20% is nuclear, and I'm assuming I'm in a room of fellow those who don't support nuclear as well. 6% is from conventional hydroelectric, and 3.6% is from renewables. Now that number is going up, and yet oftentimes, again, I read these magazine articles, they seem to really like to use that 1% number. I think the 1% number was 1998. So they continue to repeat the fact that, oh, there's only 1% or less that's made from renewables. And again, it's simply not true. Things are changing. The wind industry, for example, is growing at 37% a year. You don't hear that often. What you hear is obviously, well, we need the gas, we need the coal, we need the nuclear. Once again, it's just repeating. And I like to say, when I'm about, I know other people, including Deborah, we're about, casting off the crutches of the conventional cliches. Those that just don't apply anymore. Those that were really never true, but it allowed them to continue with this dependency on fossil fuels, which we, again, just don't need to do. Now, I'd like to get into the actual basic power system of how you can start making your own power. And again, it's not that difficult. You're talking about solar panels. I got a little sheet here that I passed around to everybody. It could be solar panels, it could be wind turbines, it could be a hydroelectric source. But in this example that I've given everyone, we're talking 6 solar panels. Now, solar panels have dropped in price 50%. So, again, those who are saying solar panels are very expensive, they're $500 a piece for basically a 200-watt solar panel. 6 of those will give you roughly, in our area of New York, you've got about 6,000 watts a day that you'll be able to generate with utmost confidence. Most houses, most homes, you do the math, most Americans are using between 6,000 and 10,000 in their homes. So you've got enough, particularly because what you're generating your solar power to put it into a battery bank. It's not like you're generating it and you need it that day. There's plenty of days when you travel, and guess what? You're not using any power, so you're feeding your batteries. The basic power system consists of really just 7 elements. You've got your solar panels themselves. Then you have what's called a control station, which is really nothing more than a diode. It just prevents the power from going in the wrong direction. The next item is your batteries, because your solar panel, most any generation method, you're going to use DC power. So you go into your batteries, which is DC power, but then you immediately go into what's called an inverter, which should really be called a converter, because you're converting to 110 volts for your house. Then you want to have a little gauge that just tells you, that what your power is. You've got everything, that you want to know the health. It's like having gauges in your car. And then the other item that you really want to have is a backup generator. And that's just, most people should have one anyway. But having a backup generator with this system, I bought mine for $500. I've had it for 6 years. It works perfectly. So if you add up all these numbers, you're looking at about $7,000. And then this is where you get some other little benefits. The federal government will give you 30% tax credit. So knock off $2,100 right there. Also from the feds, on any elements that you buy, it's 100% sales tax is also a credit. So when you're all said and done, you're looking at about, let's say, $4,900. And you could be off the grid. You could be making your own power. And I can tell you personally that there's an added benefit other than just the fact that every time I hit the switch, the power comes on, or every time I have a pump like most people are on well water. Every time that goes on, let's say there's the benefit of knowing that I'm completely self-reliant and that I'm not dependent upon some outside source to give me something as basic as electricity. We all need electricity in our modern world. So when you can go that next step where you're actually making it yourself, I can tell you that there is a great sense of personal satisfaction from that. And then the other really big part for me is the fact that I know that I'm not helping to advance the dependence on fossil fuels, and I'm also taking a proactive step of not feeding the frackers. And this is akin to writing a check to NPR, or doing any of these other things that we do. The final thing that I want to say though is that I know a lot of people say, well, is it as cheap as if you were to buy from the utility grid? Quite frankly, I don't care. Because it's not that expensive where it's crushing me. It's not that, costly where, it's a major expense to me. I made this original investment of, let's say again, about $4,900 when I built the house. And think of, what does another bathroom in the house cost? Or what does, another stall in the garage? I mean, it's much more than that. So it's actually a pretty small number that we're talking about here. And again, everyone can start making your own power, but one of your first steps is you really have to disregard everything you've been told up to this point. You can't listen to all these magazine articles that keep repeating the same fallacious bits of information that are helping to keep everyone here, onto the utility grid. Are there any questions? Yes. Yes. Deborah.
So it looks like this is a system that you would install yourself, like without the help of a solar company, because it's cheaper than someone else.
Yeah, you can do this yourself. I did it myself. The only thing I did do at the very end is I had the electrician who was wiring my house come and basically, sprinkle the holy water on the wires that I ran, make sure that, I did it right before I hit the switch. But yes, you can do it yourself. It's very simple. The one thing that I will tell you also, because that's an excellent point, most solar companies are on a new fad, and that is put 30 solar panels on your house. Don't put any batteries in. You're making power during the day, you're selling it to the utilities, and then at night, like when I'm home and when I need electricity, you're then buying back from the utilities. Unless, my opinion is, unless you've got a sawmill or you're really using a lot of electricity, for welding or some other thing, I really like this total self-reliance of making my own power and not being connected to the grid. Because, let's face it, it's the old David and Goliath thing. They're the big guys. They can change the rules anytime, and they do. So if you're not attached to the grid, you have complete control over your destiny. Yes?
What's the footprint of one of the panels and how often do they need to be replaced?
Yeah, panels will basically last, I mean, especially the ones that have been making in the past few years, you know, you're talking 25, 30 years. I've seen no reduction in the panels that I have in terms of productivity. You know, they're, after 6 years, they're running at the same capacity they were running when I installed them. They're about 4 feet long by 2.5 feet wide. What I did in my house is I put them on a shed in my garden because, once again, I didn't listen to all the experts who always want to put them on the roof of your house. One thing that I didn't know when I moved here about 7 years ago is it snows. So if you put your solar panels up on your roof and it snows, the snow is preventing the sun from reaching them. So by putting them on a little shed in my garden, before I go to work in the morning, I just go out with a brush, you know, push broom, just brush off the panels, and I've got power production all day long.